Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tinker Talks podcast. I'm your host, Mark Hybers, and today we're actually recording, I say live because we're actually recording live, but we are coming to you on location at the Airman Leadership School, which is also the building is named after Chief Master Sergeant Donald J. Hall, and we'll get into a little bit of the background about that later on. It comes with a very special meeting. And speaking of special, our guest today, after a long time of trying to get together and coordinate schedules, it's hard to chase this man down, but we are sitting down with the 72nd Airbase Wing and Installation Command Chief, Chief Gradel. And sir, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
And thanks for finally catching up.
It's good to catch up. There's a lot of things going on here at Tinker that keep Colonel Rosetta and I pretty busy, but it's great to be here with you today and chat through some things that I think are important to talk about.
Awesome. And what better place for us to get together than, for the senior enlisted to be here in this Airman Leadership School. So awesome. Well, we're going to get into that in just a second, but before we start with everything, can you just kind of give us a little bit of background about who you are and what you're all about and how you got to this point in your career?
Certainly. So I'm from just right down the road in Texas. It's a little bit down the road, probably about 4 hours in Waco, Texas. Me and my wife Blair, we're both from there. Been there for about 26 years now. I started off as a supply troop and cross-trained to be a cyber airman. I also went on and have been a first sergeant twice as a master sergeant, senior master sergeant. I got to come back as the Air Combat Command first sergeant. Let's see. In the job now as a command chief, I was previously the first fighter wing command chief at Langley Air Force Base. This year marks 10 years as a chief, so I know that I'm getting up there in years, and I'll tell you, every day here at Tinker Air Force Base is a blessing.
Right, that's awesome. These kids probably keep you young.
They do, right? So I'm so glad that when we kind of put this together that you decided to come here and to kind of do the podcast, because if I were to pick any place on base to come and do it, if enlisted heritage history in general is important to me, and just I love being around airmen. That's where I kind of get my energy back from. So Thanks for having it here.
Yeah, thank you. In full transparency, my career in active duty and reserve was also enlisted. So the near and dear, the enlisted side to me. So we're going to get into a little bit of focus about your priorities today, and I know you've had these going for about a year now. Your priorities are focused on mindset in regards to Airbase Wing readiness, development, and standards. And of course, you had been on these priorities and focused on this a while. Sure. And then when Secretary Hegseth came in, they kind of really align perfectly with the direction that the new secretary is going. And also with Colonel Rosetta, she is hyper focused on readiness and has been since the day she took the stick. So have your airmen, to that end, what have your airmen been doing to get after the new readiness and focus standards as they've been changing? The cultures had to change a little bit. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'll tell you, when I got here in July of last year, I came in at the time where Colonel Rosetta was in the mindset, and the wing was getting after great power competition. Mm-hmm. So in 2024, that was the year of competition. Mm-hmm. And I liked competition because I think competition makes us stronger. You don't get any better day in and day out by trying to compete with yourself, right? We have to compete with each other to figure out where our strengths are, where weaknesses are, and then once you figure those things out, you can figure out how to get better. When I got into the seat, Colonel Rosetta, gave me the opportunity to come up with, some priorities that would hopefully align with hers. And back in September, I really started pitching to her some of the ideas that I wanted to expand upon, because while competition is great, we've been talking about readiness. At least I've been thinking about readiness for a long period of time, because when you talk about great power competition, right? Mm-hmm. Whenever you compete, you have to be ready to compete, right? So when I think about the building block, right, even before the competition starts, I have to make myself ready. Right. I have to make myself ready, whether I'm an airman, whether I'm a civilian. What does that readiness look like? So back in September, I started thinking through some of those things and trying to align those to where hopefully this wing would be in a good posture for 2025. when Colonel Rosetta, Miss Patton, Colonel Smukes and I kind of came together and talked through this, we decided that 2025 was going to be the year of readiness. But really for my priorities, as you mentioned, right, is readiness, from the focal point of mental readiness. Every single day you wake up as an airman, right? We have to wake up and face the reality that there are some challenges that we're going through, whether it's an Air Force, whether it's Department of Defense, with regards to change, with uncertainty. Executive orders are coming down fast. But every single day that we get an opportunity to serve in this nation, we need to be ready. That is the focal point of what we do here at Tinker Air Force Base, is put out readiness. Right. So ready for what? That's really the question. And I think the answer comes in ready to go to war, ready to defend this base and to deploy airmen into harm's way. And hopefully our readiness posture allows us for those men and women to come back to us, right? So when I think about mental readiness, that is the first focal point, is we have to be ready mentally every single day. And there are going to be days where we're stronger. There are going to be days where we go through things. Not everyone wakes up feeling great every morning after 26 years in the Air Force. I can't tell you that my back feels great every day, right? So there's times when I need to go and get an adjustment. There's been times throughout my career where mental health has to be a priority, and I've had to prioritize that like many other airmen do. But you get the help that you need, and you come back more ready than what you were, and that's where that resiliency kind of ties into mental readiness. So that's the readiness with regards to that mental aspect every single day. You touched upon development of people, and I say people because this wing, while we have some really great airmen that wear the uniform, our wing is actually comprised of more civilians than it is blue suiters. Right. So our civilian airmen need development as well as our blue suiters, and one of the things that we've done to kind of complement the development of people is to make sure that when we do commanders calls, that we start off every single commander's call with an intel brief. If you don't know what the enemy is doing, how can you possibly understand how to defeat them? How can you be ready if you have no knowledge of where their strengths and weaknesses and things that they're trying to get after? So one of the things that we have is we are trying to develop people intentionally to give them the power, the knowledge, the information that they need to be most ready. Another aspect of development of people is on this installation, we're very fortunate to have some Navy folks. The TACAMO mission is here. It's a really special mission, but we have the 507th Air Refueling Wing that's here. We have the 514th. We have our SOW is right out the gate at Will Rogers. We have a total force that is ready to get after a lot of things, and I think that if and when we do go and fight in the Pacific, that this isn't going to be an air battle alone. Our friends in the Navy are going to play a big part in that. So what we've done is we've integrated the Navy into our Air Force Foundations courses, 3, 5, and 700, right, to where now we have Navy panels coming in, and they're talking about Navy leadership, deck plate leadership. There's a lot of things that the world's greatest Navy can provide the world's greatest Air Force. So when you think about that fight in the Pacific, if I go in there only understanding and knowing my role and my responsibility, it's very hard to pivot to have another teammate there with each other. So what I want to do is break down the barriers that we may have in our service and truly become joint, and to get better perspectives for if and when that fight comes, we're ready to go in there, one team, one fight, not just an Air Force mission, but integrated with the Navy to open up the landing spots to where our soldiers and our Marines come in there and wreak havoc.
Right, that's awesome. And I didn't realize that you had included the Navy as well. I mean, they've got over 200 years of experience in doing this, that I'm sure that provides a pretty good option in how we train and how we've been doing things.
It is. And you talk about, like, we sit here in an enlisted leadership school. Right. So we also bring the Navy into this culture as well as our civilians. We talk about development. Here in this Airman Leadership School, we have civilian blue suiters that have come through here. The last class had a defender that was a civilian that came through here through this course. Same curriculum, same fitness, same every single thing, but it just happened to be a civilian defender. And we've done the same thing with the Navy. So we are bringing them together and developing people together because it's going to take all of us, when that balloon goes up to make sure that we're doing what we need to.
Right. Love that foresight. And so, like a year ago, it's not to say we've never had readiness
Sure.
in the Air Force or in the military. I mean, it's a thing, but the way you approach readiness changes. And so last year, when Colonel Rosetta came on and kind of really, and the Air Force in general, changed the way we were getting after readiness. So over the past year, you've seen it coming along and growing. Where would you like to see the readiness of the enlisted crew a year from now, like when you're getting ready to punch out?
100%, right? So you go back 12 months ago, just in 12 months, we've integrated aspects to our training to make it more realistic. We have taken a spot off base, and we have designated that as our training location, and we go out there and we're able to provide a environment that looks more like a downrange environment, to where we can simulate to the greatest extent possible what that threat is. So when we go out to Glenwood Training Annex, we go out there and we're able to partner with the Army in this case, and to build in scenarios that are realistic to what that threat is. So we are hyper-focused on that threat, understanding that threat, and then going out, getting away from this installation into a deployed environment, if you will, and integrating the same tactics, techniques, and procedures that we're going to need in that fight here locally, and then to evaluate ourselves. So our IG team, our safety team, has done a great job of teeing those things up. And most recently, what we've added in is helo ops. So medical evacuations, securing runways, the same things that we would be doing, downrange, but getting those reps and sets in here locally to prepare us for that fight downrange. That's something that we've never done before, is to be able to partner with the Army Air National Guard and have those folks come in here with helos, mass casualty evacuations, fly them out, and it provides a realistic aspect to the training that's just not punching a ticket every single day. We've had airmen from the OSS that are air traffic controllers come out and talk to their commander about re-enlisting, because now it's not just sitting air traffic control tower and monitoring the traffic there. They're going out there, they're establishing runways, they're bringing in different assets, and it hits home for these airmen. And it's one of the reasons why this airman is choosing to extend based upon the training that we're doing, because it's real, right? And it makes a real impact for our airmen.
Awesome. And that was a great video to see too. And a shout out to our IG team.
Yep.
They're not always the most popular group when they walk into a room, but,
right.
But in all fairness, like they tell us, I mean, they're there to be harsh on us to make sure that we're ready to do the things that we need to do. Yep. And the fact that they've been stepping up their game as well in providing this type of training. And our cameraman, who you can't see, but I'm sure everybody knows, Clayton Cummins, did some great video of the work that was done there, especially that helo come flying in here and watching the med group do their thing out. Yep. And you bring up a good point about even as a recruiting tool in this, helping people maybe want to make the decision to stay on and stay blue and stay in the fight. But do you feel like maybe having them get further in depth into this type of training, this style of training, gives them more of that feel of that military camaraderie, and hey, I'm not just here to sit chill behind a desk and do my thing. Like I need to get out and get after it, stay moving, stay physical. Is it?
I think we all, whether you're military or civilian, you chose the Air Force because you wanted to give back. Mm-hmm. And at some point in time, depending, we've been in war, we've been in peace. We're in a different time right now where there's still battles that are still fighting, and who knows what is on the horizon. None of us can predict it, but I think that what draws us to really being airmen is to defense of this nation, and to knowing that the person to the left of you and to the right of you took that same oath, and they're willing to die for you. But to be prepared, for that moment, it takes us all to kind of think about how we want to train and ways in which we can get better. I think that's at the heart of every airman is, The Marines have a saying, every Marine is a rifleman. We haven't done a very good job of, I don't think, identifying what it is to be an airman. And that's something that, as we're the youngest branch other than the Space Force that just stepped up here, is we're still trying to identify who we are as a service. But I think that every airman is an airman at heart that is lethal and that is combat capable. And we just need to provide the resources and the environment for that airman to come out and to show them and to give them the tools that they need, because it's not just about sitting at a desk, right? That's especially for our young airmen, they love to get out there, that they want to go and do this mission, and we need to provide them, the environment to where they can fully get it, whether it's at Glenwood or it's the security forces who stood up a shoot house last year where we're firing sim rounds and preparing for active shooters, God forbid that ever happens, or it's just getting some reps and sets in with some realistic training. That's what it's about, and that's where the excitement comes, is letting these airmen go and do the things that they want to do under the direction of readiness, and with some safety guidelines that's in there. But it's really pushing the bounds to make sure that our airmen are going to be ready if and when the time comes.
Just re-energizing that warrior ethos spirit.
That's exactly right. That's exactly where we're going.
I love it. And so over the past couple of years, the Air Force has looked to push more decision making down to the NCOs in order to make them a little more agile. During the past year, have you seen more of our junior airmen adapt into this role? Will it make her quicker thinking and more lethal? Because I know that's kind of the goal, right? Is we're supposed to give the decision maker, we're really pushing that to the lowest levels for agility, quick thinking. And I'll say, you can say a lot of things about the military, but one thing our United States military and Air Force is really great at is adaptation to environments and the way we do things. So how's that been going?
So I'll tell you, you nailed it. It's really pushing decision making down to the lowest level. And the Air Force right now is really talking about mission command. And that's really what it is taking control of a situation, making calculated, intelligent decisions while understanding risk, right? So I first want to just talk about, a little bit about mission command, which is what we're doing whenever we, put a lot of younger airmen in scenarios and in situations where they probably haven't done before, and to make them think through what leadership of teams looks like. And a lot of these airmen are very young in their career, but just because they're young doesn't mean that they can't lead, right? And you need to give them the opportunity to fail, right? And fail in an environment to where it's not going to be at severe risk to people or to mission, because you don't get any better doing the same thing, right? We have to take a little bit of risk and a little, we learn from our mistakes. So I think we give airmen the opportunity to go out there and learn. They're probably going to scrape their knees, bump their elbows a couple times, right? But when you heal up, once again, I go back to, that's how you get better. That's how you become more resilient, is learning those lessons quicker in life than making those as, a senior mass sergeant or a mass sergeant. You don't want to learn those lessons, late in the game whenever all the stripes are there. Right. I'd rather indoctrinate them, teach them how to lead at a younger level. And I think it's in line with where the Air Force is thinking about going with an A staff. So that's really on pause right now, pending the next Secretary of the Air Force upon confirmation if we decide to continue on this path of an A staff, which we are prepared to go through. We've exercised out at Glenwood most recently in the War Wagon exercises. And what we've done, to your point, is we had people that formed up an A staff that were as young as A1Cs, that were out there as subject matter experts working alongside a commander that was an 05, advising that commander on things like logistics or readiness or force support. And what it really has I think enabled those airmen to do is to grow in their confidence, to understand what mission looks like, and to interact in a professional way with an individual that has probably a lot more rank and a lot more experience, and to be able to show what that A1C or senior airman or young staff sergeant brings to the fight, which is a different perspective, probably that you get from a master sergeant or a major, right? But it's not a bad perspective. It's a fresh perspective, right? So we're going through a lot of change right now, and I think change drives innovation. So I see an opportunity for our young airmen to truly innovate, and we tell them that they're the innovators. So I really like the direction that we're going with Mission Command and potentially this A staff, because I think that it opens up the doors for maybe some different, demographics of airmen, some a little bit less experience, to provide perspective and thought to where they are totally tied into the mission, but also providing a different way of doing business, and that makes us better.
And it's good to hear it from somebody at your level, because first of all, that the junior airman, I mean, what a confidence builder, as you said, to entrust that in him, but also making sure that the gristly master sergeant, senior master sergeant is cool with the concept of, hey, it's not that we're pulling you out of your leadership role, but should the occasion arise where we've got an A1C that's in some austere environment, needs to know how to figure out what to do and make a quick decision, and know that we can entrust our Air Force to them. So
you bet.
Coming from your level down, that probably means a lot. And you did mention getting after the frontline supervisor growth. You had said that. Why is that important?
I'll tell you, I don't think there's a harder job. If I were, to go out and talk to young airmen in Airman Leadership School, and I've done this, countless times, and I'll ask them, hey, what do you think the hardest job is in the Air Force? Do you think it's, being a general officer? Is it being a first sergeant? Is it being a commander? Like, what do you think the most difficult job is? And some of them will, it's probably being a general officer, or maybe it's being a commander, or whatever. A lot of times, they come up with some really, really great answers. But very few of them realize that the hardest job, I believe, in the Air Force is frontline supervisor, because we're asking those men and women two things. We're asking them to train, mentor, and lead airmen under their command, under their purview, under their leadership. And we're also asking them to be subject matter experts. So that is a very hard thing to do, to be really great at your craft and to maintain that craft, but to then have the time, the energy, the focus to make airmen better. And we look at those frontline supervisors, that's where the work gets done, right? Mm-hmm. That's where the senior leaders provide direction, and it gets down, and the people that are actually guarding the base, that are loading the pilots, that are providing the medical care are airmen, right? The very junior civilians, GS5s, GS6s, the people that wear one stripe, two stripes on their sleeve, those are the people that are getting things done, right? So as a frontline supervisor, they have all the responsibility and little of the rank, right? Very few stripes on their uniform, but they're getting after it. So my goal is to empower those people that are getting the mission done. And if I can't blow wind at the sails of those civilian supervisors or those airman supervisors, one, I'm not doing my job. And two, I'm not empowering them to do their jobs. I've got to provide them the training, the resources behind that, because that's where the work gets done. Mm-hmm. It doesn't get done just on direction, right? There's actual, that's where the blood, sweat, and tears come in. And I remember, my times being, a young staff sergeant, and thinking back fondly upon those times where, sometimes I felt like I was alone and unafraid, and trying to, get through, some really hard decisions and try and take care of my airmen at the same time. And it's a real challenge. So that's where my heart is, as a chief, is just open up the doors, clearing the ways for those frontline supervisors to go and take care of their people.
It's awesome. Very critical. And you have been looking to have increased leadership involvement in the dorms. What does that mean, and how has that developed in your time here?
So I can go back, when I was an Airman, I came in a slick sleeve, and I was at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, my first assignment in 1999. And I remember my suite mate, my roommate at the time, I shared a room with a guy named Pete Lucas. I've stayed up with Pete throughout the years. We haven't talked in a little bit, but my times in the dorms were memorable because that's where a lot of friendships were. I spent almost 3 years in the dorms. The dorms that we were in, it was 2 to a room. We shared a bathroom. and then there was two other guys on the other side. So it was 4 of us for one shower and one toilet. So it made PT and changing and a lot of opportunities fun,
right.
To try and figure out who was going to be in the bathroom and to work that all out. But we look at the dorms here, and some of them are older than other ones. But our airmen, for the most part, they have their own kitchen that they share with one other person in their own bathrooms. That some of them may share with one other person. But really the dorms is critical. It's that transition piece where a lot of folks come from, their mom or dad's house, or maybe did a little bit of college and they're just kind of getting their feet wet and figuring this thing out. But once they join the Air Force, I think we owe them the opportunity to grow and develop in the right environment. And that's what we're cultivating here at Tinker Air Force Base, is an environment in a community where airmen can thrive, airmen can feel safe, airmen can be comfortable. Mm-hmm. Sergeant Weiner, one of the airmen dorm leaders, technical sergeant, she's done a fantastic job over there. Mr. Furman, a great leader that has really enabled our dorms to really flourish and to provide some resources to get after some of the things that the airmen want. We did a survey and talked about what airmen would want to do in some of the common areas they have. Mm-hmm. There are empty spaces right now that I would say are underdeveloped. And the airmen have come back and said, hey, we want some computers in here. We like to do some gaming over here. So really working with, some folks, whether it's first sergeants, chiefs, some partners on and off the installation to see what we can do to pour some resources into that environment to make sure, when airmen, come here and they're in the dorms for 2 to 3 years at a time, that this can feel like home.
Well, it's a great thing for you to focus on, and because we all know you've been around the culture. There's a lot of effort, and for very good reason, on the families, and all of our active duty folks that have families and taking care of families and their children and making sure that mentally they know the home life is good to go. So if they've got to go down range, they can focus on mission. But we don't all that often talk about the importance of making sure that our non-married mm-hmm. folks have the same type of environment at home, even though you don't have a family yep. there, but you do have a little piece of space that you need to call home and you need to feel good and comfortable with. And so that's cool. I think maybe that's just not discussed all that often about their mental resilience just in something as small as a dorm and a kitchenette.
So Colonel Rosetta and I go out to the dorms. The ADLs came up with this dorm of the month concept, and now it's either the 72nd or the 552 leadership teams that go out there, and one day a month we go out and we look at the best dorm room as identified by first sergeants and ADLs, and an airman gets to kind of showcase their room in their area, and we go out there and we get the opportunity. It's probably the best day of the month for us, just to see airmen in their natural habitat talk about their room, and some of them trick it out with some LED lights. I think last month's dorm room of the month was an airman from the 552, and she was telling us that I think maybe she was sheet metal, but she was talking to us about metals tech. She was talking about her dorm room, and she's a big fan of Hello Kitty. So I got a 12-year-old daughter who's also a big fan of Hello Kitty. Right. But you see the airman's personality that comes out in these rooms, and they tell you about their families and where they come from and who they are, and to have those moments to really be out with your airmen and to see what was once a room is now a home. Is really awesome. And at the end of the 4 or 5 buildings that we'll go through, Colonel Rosetta or Colonel Voigt will decide, this is the dorm of the month, and the airmen get a day off. They get rewarded for, keeping, their home up, if you will, not right. just within Air Force standards, but exceeding that and making it a special place for them. So it's one of the things that we're very proud of is the program that our ADLs have put out there.
It's awesome. Little things mean a whole lot.
Yes, sir.
And you are looking to integrate, I found this pretty interesting, integrate the civilians into this great facility, this great hall that we're in now, the Airman Leadership School. So what's that about, and what would be the benefit of that?
So, I'm gonna tell you that, and I've already touched upon it once, is when I think about, Airmen, and when Colonel Sarah, talks about Airmen, it's totally Airmen, right? And I'm talking about the Guard Reserve, But specifically in this wing, I'm talking about people that wear the uniform, but people that also wear civilian clothes. A lot of our civilian population are veterans, they're retirees. The knowledge that our airmen need as we PCS so rapidly sometimes, and they're only here for 2 to 3 years, the continuity that civilians bring, one, is invaluable. Two, the experience that they provide is immeasurable. And what they do every single day matters. So I can't just put words behind that. I have to put action into it. And I believe that the vernacular that we all use should be a language that we all understand, right, and we should all speak. So if we're talking about leadership, leadership is leadership. It doesn't have to, come from a uniform. It goes beyond that. But when we're able to come through here and have shared experiences and understand what standards are and talk through those things, it breaks down the traditional barriers that maybe some military stereotypes or civilian stereotypes might have about each other. And God forbid, when the time comes to defend this base, it's going to be us lockstep together, hand in hand. Right. So as soon as we can develop those bonds, those levels of understanding, prepares us better for that moment in time that I hope never comes, but it grows our understanding together, and it makes us better, right, as capital A Airmen. So when we integrate civilians in here, it's goodness, because a lot of times you would think that the civilians are the ones that are soaking up all this, this military education. But I'd argue that a lot of times our airmen are pulling and receiving great information from tremendous civilians that have a lot of experience in a different perspective, which is valued immensely by the blue suiters that are serving with them.
Right, that's awesome. So we're talking about the Wildcat or readiness revamp. I think maybe you've touched on that already, but how is that going? Is there still work to be done? Are we about there?
So we recently had a no-notice inspection, and we're awaiting the final results. We got a little bit of a read ahead, and I can say with confidence right now, Colonel Rosetta and I are extremely proud of the Wildcatters and how we fared in that inspection. I'll tell you that we embraced a no-notice inspection because we actually moved up our exercise 5 weeks in advance to meet the 552 that was heading out the door for some real-world operations. And our job as Wildcatters is to help get the 552 out the door and to test some of our capabilities. And I think what we found from that is there's some things we're doing extremely well, but there's a couple opportunities that I think we can get better at. And when you talk about earlier about warrior ethos and where Secretary Hegseth is coming in, we embrace that 100%. We are in line with that. I think there's some opportunities for us to get better. We have some combat readiness funds that I think that we're going to be able to execute and take a great readiness program and elevate it to the next level. So Senior Master Sergeant Balwig and Captain Peart have been recognized by AFMC. Captain Peart was a superior performer. Senior Master Sergeant Balwig briefed General Richardson whenever General Richardson and Chief Fitch were here recently on our program and where we're going. I think that you're going to continue to see some out-of-the-box thinking that is coming into how we exercise. But I also see an area for us to improve with just our warrior ethos, and specifically with weapons familiarization. I want to bring the right training weapons into our areas of operation to where, I reference every Marine is a rifleman. Right. I want us as Wildcatters to be able to have strong confidence and to pick up a weapon and know how to use it and to put bullets on target. So that's an area that I'm going to look at for us is weapons familiarization and getting better at. Same thing that there's going to be attrition anytime you go into combat. So I want to look at how we do tactical combat casualty care, TCCC. That's an area for us to improve. It's some of the basic blocking and tackling, that fundamental piece, that the standards, right? That kind of third piece that we talk about for my priorities. That focus on readiness mentally, development of people, and then standards, right? So for me, part of that standard is being able to provide the casualty care, being able to put the right arms in people's hands to where they're confident to use them, but also to think through what is the next generation of threat to us. Right. And I think that you're seeing over in Russia and Ukraine UAVs coming in. So I think that there's opportunity for us to partner with the Civil Air Patrol, ROTC, folks in the area here to get after some of that technology and to figure out how to harness it and also defend it and defend our people. So when I see our readiness in the future, I see a lot of those aspects that are coming into an already great foundational base. Right. But that's how we're going to get better.
Combat is evolving, and it's fun to watch. I mean, for me, I don't know, maybe some people disagree, but I think it's been fun to watch when you and Colonel Rosetta have implemented something like a no notice inspection. Like, what better way? I mean, if you stress the machine and find out where it breaks, like that's just the perfect way to figure out, like what you're saying, how to get our standards and readiness better. That's where you find it. I mean, right. you have to break the machine a little bit to figure out the stress points, and so right. It's been great from our side, and a lot of in our office have enjoyed watching kind of the way this is evolving and playing out. And although we haven't had to do much of it, but
no, you have.
We have a little bit. Yeah.
No, you guys do a lot of it. You mentioned Clayton earlier,
right?
So Clayton, he's a favorite of mine. I actually coined Clayton. I had the pleasure of doing that. He's been out with documenting some of the great things and putting together some videos that really highlight what our airmen do. And right. and I'll tell you that people really, I think, don't always appreciate or understand what public affairs does. And it's not just about the podcast or posting stuff on a Facebook page, but the power that PA brings to the fight. In a lot of ways, people don't really understand the messaging that's important on both sides of the aisle. Right. Y'all document our readiness, right? Our enemies, I hope they watch. I hope they understand that the 72nd is not the people that you want to mess with. Right. I want them to know that every single day that we are ready, because I think that our readiness is our strength. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you understand that this is a wing that is prepared to go and bring hell down on somebody, then you'll look elsewhere, for that fight. Right. So y'all enable that. It's extremely important. You enable us to be able to showcase to so many parents and families that are away from their airmen the great things that they're doing. All the civilians that are out there, making mission happen at the depot, day in and day out, across this installation that their families can't always see. Right. So my hat's off to you. Literally, I'm not wearing one now, but I tell you, it's not lost on me on what you all do.
We appreciate that, Chief. Yep. And AKA Clayton, AKA Whoopi. We will. You can hear him laughing back there. But we will get out there at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
And do our part in this mission.
Yep.
And then you talked a little bit about this a minute ago, and maybe you could just quickly touch on the importance of this, but we're seeing a lot of people get involved with Air Force-wide gaming and stuff. And we saw it the other day. We're taking a civic leader group through the Tinker Event Center, and they were setting up for some sort of an Air Force gaming event. So what's that all about?
So you're speaking my love language, right? So I'm not much of a gamer anymore. I grew up on the old arcade games, and I don't even, they don't make those anymore, and the young airmen don't even know what they are. But I'm a gamer at heart. I think gaming is one of the things that unites our airmen, no matter if they come from the city or the country. Their background is irrelevant because it's kind of like food. It brings people together. Right. And I think our our Airman e-gaming program is something that brings airmen together. So when this program was started about 14 months ago, they started off with a whole lot of nothing, and they've rapidly put together a team of airmen, civilians. We have some sailors. It's open to anybody on the installation, but it's really united people together from different AFSCs, different wings, different backgrounds to kind of come together and to understand each other. But you kind of touched upon earlier is warfare is always evolving. And we talk about UAVs. A lot of those same muscle movements are the same muscle movements that you need to fly a UAV as, to go out there and game.
Right.
There's a lot of collaboration and teamwork that goes into some of the gaming platforms that are there. I see it as an extension of combat, and to be able to think through scenarios and how tactics, techniques, and procedures come about in a way that there's a lot more forgiveness than on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So I think of e-gaming in a lot of different things, and it's got a lot of momentum here. We're planning on having a designated spot for our e-gaming community here, and continuing to invest in those airmen to make sure that they come together for that culture piece, that airman piece, but also secondary. There's a little secondary added value of I think that it makes them a more ready, capable airman by thinking through some of those unconventional ways to get after readiness in a combat.
Right, that's awesome. It does take some quick thinking
to
be good at video gaming.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And so you're laughing, you're being jovial right now, but those of us that know you and see you around, and I've sat in lots of meetings with you, and so I feel like I've gotten to know you pretty good over the last year, but sometimes you come off as pretty serious and gruff, maybe sometimes, and you do, that's why you're laughing. But what I can say, and I've seen this, and I've seen it many times, and one of the most recent was when we talked about paying respect to a couple of our airmen that we lost in the Oklahoma City bombing, which the 30th anniversary is coming up. But you are very passionate about airmen. So like the gruff chief that sometimes people see and, that stern harshness. But man, when it comes down to your passion for airmen, like it really shines. Like what is it about you that makes you so passionate about airmen?
I've always rooted for the underdog, and I believe that there's a lot of our airmen. I was not a very good airman. I wasn't a great airman. I think I was just a airman. I never won any awards. I didn't get any recognition until probably I was a technical sergeant. And I can just go back and think through some of the mentors and leaders that gave me an opportunity whenever I was younger. Martin Maddox was one of them. I call it the Maddox moment. When I was a young airman, he'd pull me, outside, whenever I was having some difficulty and problem and get me refocused. Chief Jerry Brannon, there's been people throughout my time that have paid it forward to put me in the position that I am in today. So I'm deadly serious about developing airmen. I am extremely passionate about people in general because people have poured into me, and I've got to give it back, right? So I am gruff, but it comes from a place of love, right? And to know me is to love me. I'm probably an acquired taste like liver, but once you get past some of that gruff exterior that you kind of talked about, I think I'm extremely empathetic person. I've given Clayton Cummings a couple of hugs whenever he's needed it, and sometimes he'll ask how I'm doing, and he'll give me a hug too, right? So not every airman gets to see that, not every civilian gets to see that, right. In the meetings and things. There's sometimes a different face. I am hyper focused sometimes, and I've got a lot of flaws, and that's probably one is just I was born with a face that only a mama could love, and sometimes it's a rather serious face, but I enjoy smiling. I enjoy talking to people and getting to know airmen and really paying it back the same way that it was poured into me. That's really my passion is to try and advocate for airmen and civilians that need something, and I've got hopefully Colonel Rosetta's trust and confidence in her ear. She can't be at every single meeting and every single place at once. So anytime that I'm able to get out and to talk to people about what they need, I love to bring that back into the meetings and provide that perspective, right, to the rest of the team and let them know this is what our folks need, right? And it's an honor and privilege to deliver that message every day.
It's great stuff. And there's nothing that says that you can't be a lethal warrior and a lethal airman without lots of layers of complexity. That's Nothing wrong with that, Chief.
Yes, sir.
So I know, speaking of your passion for airmen and everything, I know you've got somewhere to be for one of your kids. So speaking of the softer side of Chief, so we're going to let you get out of here. But before we leave, is there anything that you'd like to add that maybe we'd? Oh, first, before we do that, let's quickly touch on the name for this hall, if you don't mind.
So this building is named after a hero, and we've. I think throughout the annals of history and Air Force history, we talk a lot about heroes, and a lot of those heroes are tied to First and Second World War. And the people that we talk about a lot of times are Air Force pilots, right? Because they put themselves into danger and go out there and kind of day in and day out. Historically, how we think about the Air Force, just in the name alone, associates to flying and it's tremendous, right? A lot of those are officers, and that is a great part of our Air Force heritage. But this building was named after Chief Master Sergeant Donald Hall, right? To come into a building that has an enlisted, member's name on it is special, but it really only becomes special when you know the story. Right. So Chief Master Sergeant Hall was born in Stroud, Oklahoma. Actually raised in Stroud, Oklahoma. He was born in Wichita, Kansas. But he grew up in Oklahoma, and me being from Texas, I can appreciate the Okie pride that is here. And Chief Hall joined the Air Force in 1955, and he had done about 10 years of time in the Air Force and was a flight engineer and was getting ready to separate. He was at Mountain Home, and he was looking, post-war of going out and just starting his life, but the Air Force had some other plans for him. At that point in time, we were, into the Vietnam War, and there was a special group of airmen that were being developed, and it was the Jolly Green Mission. And there was an individual at the time that was going around and by name pulling out and going to try and to recruit the very best that the Air Force had to go and do these search and recovery missions in Vietnam. They were very dangerous missions. So Chief Hall was recruited prior to his exiting the Air Force and tied into that mission. He would go on and do these search and rescue missions in Vietnam, and he would go on to earn 2 Silver Stars. Unfortunately, during one of his missions, his helicopter and his crew were shot down. Chief Hall would go missing for 50 years, and it wasn't, I think his helicopter went down February 6th, 1967. It'd be 50 years later before his remains were recovered and returned to Oklahoma. So somebody of that stature, that has history, that has legacy, that has, I'm sure he would never consider himself a hero talking to his grandson. But he's a hero, not just for what he did, but for what he chose to do, for what his family sacrificed, to be an enlisted person, to fly into danger, knowing that you might not come back, to get, repeatedly hit with shrapnel, to be shot at, to continue to go in and recover down pilots and down air crew into a very hostile environment, knowing that makes him a hero. Right. And this building is named after him, and what we're hoping to do is to partner with the historian here on the installation and build a display that is befitting of such a hero. And we're working with his family, who is going to graciously volunteer to loan us some of his artifacts, to when an airman or a civilian or somebody walks into the Chief Master Sergeant Donald Hall building, it's not just a name. Right. It becomes a story. It becomes part of our history that is ingrained to all the airmen that come through ALS. And, it's something that we talk about, warrior ethos. My goodness, this man had it before that was a thing. Right? And the more opportunities that we can to talk about these giants, enlisted giants that we stand on their shoulders now, it makes us better every single day to have those heroes to emulate. Right? You don't have to be a pilot to be a hero. Right? You can be an enlisted airman, and you can choose to go into harm's way and be ready to get after the business. And God forbid that you don't come back. Right. But we're not going to forget about your story.
Well, and we're grateful to that because that gives us the opportunity to sit here and do this today.
Yes, sir.
And so, Chief, I think with that, that's a great place to wrap up.
Okay.
I'll let you get out of here and,
yes,
and go take care of our family business like we talked about. So with that, we are going to close this episode of the Tinker Talks podcast. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I know we always say that. Hit that bell. And definitely give us some comments and feedback. You know, we want to hear from you about what you'd like to see, things that we can do better. Don't forget to follow us on the socials. That's Facebook and Instagram at Team Tinker. And then on the X, it's at Team_Tinker. And until next time, you guys stay safe out there. Carry that warrior ethos spirit. And we'll see you on the next one.
Tinker strong.
Tinker strong.